So, you've done it. You bought a Quest to Revive, a brand new VR headset. You're excited to dive into the games, but you have a few questions. Some of the more predominant ones might be, why aren't there more VR games? With the current VR games that are out now, why do so many of them just stop being developed? Why are they being abandoned? Why do so many people not even really want to play VR now? The truth is, VR is a pretty expensive thing to get into. If you just bought a console or you just invested into a PC, you might be like, wow, okay, so if I just spent like $1,000, $2,000 on a computer, I dropped this much on a console and I bought so many games, why should I have to pay a few more $100, maybe even $1,000 when it's all said and done to get a new headset, base stations if you want to have full body tracking? Like, there's so much that goes into it. It's unbelievable. It's insane. And to add on to it, every time you want to get into VR, it's an entire process, okay? You have to set it up every time you go in. And it's not just like turning on your computer, okay? Well, if you use Airlink for the Quest 2, then yes, it would be a lot simpler, but there's still setup involved. There's just a fair bit of hassle. It's expensive, okay? So there's quite a few reasons why people wouldn't want to be getting into it. Another good one would be the graphics. So if you're expecting a VR game to look amazing, it's not going to look amazing. There's probably a variety of factors into why they don't, but they don't, okay? VR chat never really looks amazing. Pavlov, I mean, no, not really. Phasmophobia, like, there's so many games out there that are VR compatible that do not look great. And it's just so it can run on the VR headsets themselves or with a computer sometimes. But usually if they plan for it to be VR compatible, they want it to run on the VR headset. So it can't be too performance intensive because the headset itself isn't very powerful, which is why, I don't know, like 70-80% of the time, you're going to be hooking it up to your computer. So there's another reason. If you want to have VR, you're probably going to need a pretty good beefy computer to play VR games. You can't just do it with integrated graphics, okay? You need to have some investment on the get-go to do it. Of course, there are games that if you just buy the headset itself, you can just play on the headset itself, like Gorilla Tag, for example, okay? I don't know many because I don't ever do that. I hook it up to my computer and I play games that way, but there are indeed standalone games for headsets themselves. They're not, again, not very performance heavy, not huge on storage, okay? They're easy, simple games. They're meant to show off the splendor, the wonder of virtual reality as you come into it for the very first time and you get yourself a bit of phantom sense. You're like, wow, hot damn, I just touched this object, you know what I mean? It's crazy, phantom sense. And you know what? Here's another good one. People want to enjoy it with their friends. For VR chat, there's a desktop option. So if you're playing VR chat with your friends, they can hop on desktop. You know what I mean? But if you yourself are capable of buying a headset, who's to say your friend group is? You know what I mean? Not every single person out there wants to do this, and especially not on a whim or a gamble if they don't even know if they're going to enjoy it in the first place. Of course, they can refund it, but I mean, it's such a hassle to begin with. You know what I mean? You've already taken it out of the box. You've already set it up, and I mean, really, if you don't even end up playing it that often, then what's the point? I'll tell you what. Here's a personal example. Well, it is pretty related actually. The cord. I don't use Airlink. I don't really like it. Okay, it could be improved. It's kind of shitty. Anyway, the cord from my Quest 2, it goes, after so many months, so many weeks of just constantly dragging across the floor, being pulled out of the port, being used. Okay, it has a lifespan, and it will eventually go. Okay, I've went through. This is like my second or third one now. So there's that too. You're gonna have to play with that. It's gonna be great. You're gonna have to constantly, it'll take you out of it, and then if it happens enough times in a single session, you have to reboot your VR entirely. It's not great. Of course, if you want to fuck around with Airlink, you can be my guest on that one for sure. But I will stay away from it. Thank you very much. It's not my thing. I don't like it. It's troublesome. It's buggy. Not really a fan. Maybe in a couple years. Now, of course, every once in a while there are a few innovative games that come out, or ports of already existing games. For example, like the Half-Life game, which is interesting to me. So there's that. But that doesn't happen that often. You know what I mean? You see what I mean? So VR games don't happen every day. That could be a reason to get into it, honestly, because they don't happen every day. So, I mean, if you're willing to drop that money, or if you already have, then that could be something for you. But it is an investment, you know what I mean? I would have to say chances are, if you're already a gamer to begin with and you enjoy gaming, then you might enjoy virtual reality. But I mean, if you get like motion sick, or you can't wear the headset, you'd have to try it at least once to figure out if you like it or not. It's a bit of adjustment, especially if it's like an FPS. There's a lot of head movement and just movement in general, so you have to get used to it for sure. I definitely have gotten sick at least a little bit in my stomach a few times. Not anything major, but I got over it really quickly. The more time you spend, the more it goes away. That also applies with Phantom Sense. I will say the Quest line of headsets, they are made to be accessible and affordable, which is why they are the most dominant seller. Okay, they make the most money. They're sold the most. That's why you hear about them so often, because they're made to be at least a little bit more, like, they're more entry level, okay, than any other headsets out there. Of course, there might be cheaper ones, but I don't think you're getting anything better than a Quest 2 at that price level of performance. It's a pretty good entry, like almost mid-level range. I don't know if you can do full body with them, because I haven't tried. I think if I were to do full body with mine, I would definitely upgrade my headset first, probably maybe even my computer too, but I would definitely want to upgrade the headset first, just to be 110%, because I know when I get into crowded VR lobbies, it definitely starts to take a toll on the headset, the computer. So if I can't even handle like more than 20 or 30 people in a single session, then I know shit's whack. Okay, you gotta have an upgrade first before you worry about full body. You know what I mean? But full body itself isn't even. I don't want to say accessible, but there's just not many games out there that really utilize it. There's VR chat. There might be a few shooters out there that use full body, but for like 90% of the time, it's just going to be your head, your torso, and your arms, okay? Like your arms to move and shit. And your legs are just like your physical, like they're not going to model that shit and do it, you know what I mean? The only time it would really make sense is if you're in VR chat, or like a social game like that, where you want to have your full body for whatever fucking reason. Because honestly, what applications are there for full body VR outside of that social setting? Okay, not even like in a degenerate sense, but just like in an actual fashion. What are some situations you could use it in, apart from an FPS or VR chat? You know what I mean? And so it doesn't happen a lot. So you could count on one hand how many games support full body tracking. So if you were to get into VR in the first place, I would say that's like level 2 of it. Like if you like that's like doubling down basically. So if you know absolutely sure that you're gonna enjoy the fuck out of those handful of games that support full body, get full body. You know what I mean? If you love staring at mirrors in VR chat for whatever fucking reason they do that for, then hey, you know what? Get full body and just sit there for hours on end and do absolutely nothing. Why not, right? They do it. To connect with you more on a personal level, my only real experiences in virtual reality would be zombies. So, for example, Pavlov VR or Contractors. There's a few rare occasions where I actually hop into a multiplayer match, but 95% of the time when I hop on Contractors or Pavlov, not so much Pavlov anymore, because guess what? They really stopped development, and that's a good example, because that was one of the main reasons I got onto VR. But I get on mostly for VR Call of Duty Zombies. People will remake the Call of Duty Zombies maps in VR, which is great. You know, it's a one of a kind experience. You know what I mean? It's great, and you can't experience it any other. I mean, you can on like PC, but VR is just so much different. If you're a Zombies fan, like a player, or you did play it, I would suggest this. But again, it's an investment. I'm not really much of a social person myself, but if my friends say, "Oh, well, hey, you know what? I just found this really cool map on VR chat," or you know, we'll hop in and play mini golf, or we'll find like a horror map. There's not even that many on VR chat, but the Devouring was a good one. Anyway, but shit like that, you know what I mean, or like an adventure map or something. Sometimes we do hop into an actual social setting, like the Pug, but not really often, you know, because a lot of those sessions have a lot of people, and then again, once it's over like 15 to 20 people, it just kind of fucking dies. So, but there have been a few great fun sessions that are memorable. I'll say that. So it did help bring me on my show a little bit. So I'm definitely not complaining. That said, though, it is a bit of a tough crowd to get into. If you don't like furries or anything weird, maybe don't consider VR chat, because VR chat, that is that setting. Okay, that is the people who have invested heavily into their computers, into the digital world, and you know it shows in VR. So you should expect that going forward. Anyway, I'm not going to take up the majority of your day, your evening, your morning, whatever the fuck time it is for you. So I'm just going to leave it here. Anyway, yeah.